Italian Jews can be used in a broad sense to mean all Jews living or with roots in Italy, or in a narrower sense to mean the Italkim, an ancient community who use the Italian rite, as distinct from the communities dating from medieval or modern times who use the Sephardi or Ashkenazi rite. Divisions. Italian Jews historically fell into four categories. Italkim, Jews of the Italian rite who have resided in Italy since Roman times, see below. Sephardim, in particular the Spanish and Portuguese Jews, i.e., Jews who arrived in Italy following the expulsions from Spain in 1492, Portugal in 1497, and the Kingdom of Naples in 1533. These in turn include both those expelled at the time and crypto-Jewish families who left Spain and Portugal in subsequent centuries and reverted to Judaism. There was also some immigration by Levantine Sephardim, that is to say families which had lived in the eastern Mediterranean following expulsion from the Iberian Peninsula. Ashkenazim, Jews living mainly in the northern part of Italy. The Jews of Asti, Fossano, and Moncalvo. These represent the Jews expelled from France in the Middle Ages. Their liturgy is similar to that of the Ashkenazim, but contains some distinctive usages descended from the French Jews of the time of Rashi, particularly in the services for the High Holy Days. Historically, these communities remained separate. In a given city there was often an Italian synagogue, and a Spanish synagogue, and occasionally a German synagogue as well. In many cases these have since amalgamated, but a given synagogue may have services of more than one rite. Today there are further categories. The Jews of San Nicandro Huranasim, descendants of the Neophyta of San Nicandro Garganico. Iranian Jews living in Rome and Milan. Libyan Jews living in Rome. History. Italian Jews can be traced back as far as the 2nd century BCE. Tombstones and dedicatory inscriptions survive from this period. At that time they mostly lived in the far south of Italy, with a branch community in Rome, and were generally Greek-speaking. It is thought that some families are descendants of Jews deported from Judea by the Emperor Titus in 70 CE. In early medieval times there were major communities in southern Italian cities, such as Bari and Otranto. Medieval Italian Jews also produced important halachic works such as Shibboleth ha-Leket. Following the expulsion of the Jews from the Kingdom of Naples in 1533, the center of gravity shifted to Rome and the north. One of the most famous of Italy's Jews was Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, whose written religious and ethical works are still widely studied. The Italian Jewish community as a whole has numbered no more than 50,000 since it was fully emancipated in 1870. During the Second Aliyah, many Italian Jews moved to Israel, and there is an Italian synagogue and cultural center in Jerusalem. Some 7,000 Italian Jews were deported and murdered during the Holocaust. Italian Rite Jews. The native Italian Jews, as distinct from the Sephardim and the Ashkenazim, are sometimes referred to in the scholarly literature as Italkim, meaning Italic, Latin, Roman. Italkit is also used in modern Hebrew as the language name, Italian. They have traditionally spoken a variety of Judeo-Italian languages. The customs and religious rites of the Italian Rite Jews can be seen as a bridge between the Ashkenazi and Sephardi traditions. Showing similarities to both, they are closer still to the customs of the Romaniates. A subdivision is recognized between Minhag Bene Romi, practiced in Rome, and Minhag Italiana, practiced in northern cities such as Turin, though the two rites are generally close. In matters of religious law, Italian Rite Jews generally follow the same rules as the Sephardim, in that they accept the authority of Isaac Alfazi and the Shulchan Aruch as opposed to the Ashkenazi customs codified by Moses Isler. However, their liturgy is different from that of both these groups. One reason for this may be that Italy was the main center of early Jewish printing, enabling Italian Jews to preserve their own traditions when most other communities had to opt for a standard Sephardi or Ashkenazi prayer book. It is often claimed that the Italian prayer book contains the last remnants of the Judean, Galilean Jewish tradition, while both the Sephardi and, to a lesser extent, the Ashkenazi rites reflect the Babylonian tradition. This claim is quite likely historically accurate, though it is difficult to verify textually as little liturgical material from the land of Israel survives. Additionally, some Italian traditions reflect the Babylonian rite in a more archaic form, in much the same way as the prayer book of the Yemenite Jews. Examples of old Babylonian traditions retained by the Italians but by no other group are the use of Keter Yitenu Lach in the Kedusha of all services and of Nahemenu and Birkat Hamazon on Shabbat, both of which are found in the Siddur of Amram Gaon. This pronunciation has in many cases been adopted by the Sephardi, Ashkenazi and Apam communities of Italy as well as by the Italian Rite communities. Ashkenazi Jews. There have been Ashkenazi Jews living in the north of Italy since at least as early as the late Middle Ages. In Venice, they were the oldest Jewish community in the city, antedating both the Sephardic and the Italian groups. Following the invention of printing, Italy became a major publishing center for Hebrew and Yiddish books for the use of German and other northern European Jews. A notable figure was Elijah Leviter, who was an expert Hebrew grammarian and Masoret as well as the author of the Yiddish romantic epic Bovo Buck. Another distinctive community was that of Asti, Fossano and Moncalvo, which was descended from Jews expelled from France in 1394. This community includes the well-known Lattes family. Only the Asti synagogue is still in use today. Their rite, known as Apam, is similar to the Ashkenazi, but has some peculiarities drawn from the Old French rite, particularly on the High Holy Days. These variations are found on loose leaf sheets which the community uses in conjunction with the normal Ashkenazi prayer book. They are also printed by Goldschmidt. This rite is the only surviving descendant of the original French rite, as known to Rashi, used anywhere in the world. French Ashkenazim since 1394 have used the German Ashkenazi rite. In musical tradition and in pronunciation, Italian Ashkenazim differ considerably from the Ashkenazim of other countries, and show some assimilation to the other two communities. Exceptional are the northeastern communities such as that of Gorizia, which date from Austro-Hungarian times and are much closer to the German and Austrian traditions. Sephardi Jews. Since 1442, when the Kingdom of Naples came under Spanish rule, considerable numbers of Sephardi Jews came to live in southern Italy. Following the expulsion of the Jews from Spain in 1492, from Portugal in 1495 and from the Kingdom of Naples in 1533, many moved to central and northern Italy. One famous refugee was Don Isaac Abravanel. Over the next few centuries they were joined by a steady stream of conversos leaving Spain and Portugal. In Italy they ran the risk of prosecution for Judaizing, given that in law they were baptized Christians. For this reason they generally avoided the Papal States. The popes did allow some Spanish Jewish settlement at Ancona, as this was the main port for the Turkey trade, in which their links with the Ottoman Sephardim were useful. Other states found it advantageous to allow the conversos to settle and mix with the existing Jewish communities, and to turn a blind eye to their religious status, while in the next generation, the children of conversos could be brought up as fully Jewish with no legal problem, as they had never been baptized. The main places of settlement were as follows. Venice. The Venetian Republic often had strained relations with the papacy. On the other hand, they were alive to the commercial advantages offered by the presence of educated Spanish-speaking Jews, especially for the Turkey trade. Previously, the Jews of Venice were tolerated under charters for a fixed term of years, periodically renewed. In the early 16th century these arrangements were made permanent, and a separate charter was granted to the Ponentine community. The price paid for this recognition was the confinement of the Jews to the newly established Venetian ghetto. Nevertheless, for a long time the Venetian Republic was regarded as the most welcoming state for Jews, equivalent to the Netherlands in the 17th century or the United States in the 20th century. Sephardic immigration was also encouraged by the Este princes, in the possessions of Reggio, Modena and Ferrara. In 1598, following the extinction of the male line of Des Dukes of Ferrara, that city was repossessed by the Papal States, leading to some Jewish emigration from there. In 1593, Ferdinando I Medici, Grand Duke of Tuscany, granted Portuguese Jews charters to live and trade in Pisa and Livorno. On the whole, the Spanish and Portuguese Jews remained separate from the native Italian Jews, though there was considerable mutual religious and intellectual influence between the groups. The Scuola Spagnola of Venice was originally regarded as the mother synagogue for the Spanish and Portuguese community worldwide, as it was among the earliest to be established, and the first prayer book was published there. Later communities, such as Amsterdam, followed its lead on ritual questions. With the decline in the importance of Venice in the 18th century, the leading role passed to Livorno and Amsterdam. The Livorno synagogue was destroyed in the Second World War. A modern building was erected in 1958–62. In addition to Spanish and Portuguese Jews strictly so-called, Italy has been host to many Sephardi Jews from the Eastern Mediterranean, Dalmatia and many of the Greek islands, where there were large Jewish communities, were for several centuries part of the Venetian Republic, and there was a Levantine community in Venice. This remained separate from the Ponentine community and close to their eastern roots, as evidenced by their use in the early 18th century of a hymn book classified by Mackem in the Ottoman manner. Later on, the community of Livorno acted as a link between the Spanish and Portuguese and the Eastern Sephardic Jews and as a clearinghouse of musical and other traditions between the groups. Many Italian Jews today have Levantine roots, for example in Corfu, and before the Second World War Italy regarded the existence of the Eastern Sephardic communities as a chance to expand Italian influence in the Mediterranean. In the 18th and 19th centuries, many Italian Jews maintained a trading and residential presence in both Italy and countries in the Ottoman Empire. Even those who settled permanently in the Ottoman Empire retained their Tuscan or other Italian nationality, so as to have the benefit of the Ottoman capitulations. Smaller communities of the same kind existed in other countries, such as Syria, where they were known as Señores Francos, though they generally were not numerous enough to establish their own synagogues, instead meeting for prayer in each other's houses. European countries often appointed Jews from these communities as their consular representatives in Ottoman cities. Between the two world wars, Libya was an Italian colony and, as in other North African countries, the colonial power found the local Jews useful as an educated elite. Following Libyan independence, and especially after the Six-Day War in 1967, many Libyan Jews left either for Israel or for Italy, and today most of the Sephardi synagogues in Rome are in fact Libyan. Discography. Italian Jewish musical traditions from the Leo Levi collection contains examples of Italian liturgical music from the Italiana, Bene Romi, Sephardi and Ashkenazi traditions. Talil Zimra, singing Jew. The Florence Leghorn Jewish musical tradition, Beth Hate Futsot, 2002. Adler Israel, Hosharana Rabbah in Casal Monferrato 1732. Dove in the Clefts of the Rock, Jewish Music Research Center, Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Jerusalem 1990, book and CD. Free download of Tefillot, Haftaro, Parashot sung according the Italian rite on the site www.torah.it.